David, I really hope that you are going to tell me that we are about to jump back into your volume 2 of your NASA Contractor reports, which you introduced to us back in video 22.
Yes, Bjorn. I wrote those reports about 20 years ago, and most of what I wrote then is relevant today. Join me in exploring Chapter 4 of Volume 2. And the original title of that chapter is Breakthrough Energetics, 0-Point Energy. So keep watching. You don't want to miss this one.
Its fear and pain, and help the people to feel free again. Why don't we listen to the voices in our heart? 'Cause then I know we'll find we're not that far apart. Everybody's got to be happy, everyone should sing. 'Cause we know the joy of life, the peace that love can bring. Thus spoke the wizard in his mountain home. Vision of his wisdom means we'll never be alone. And I will dream on my magic night, and the million silver stars that guide me with their light.
So, David, this is a huge topic.
Infinitely so.
Well, exactly. So then where do we begin to talk about this? Maybe in order to illustrate the vastness of what you want to convey in this video, our viewers could watch video number 7 in this series.
Yes, where I talk about how each cubic centimeter, this being about a centimeter, of empty vacuum observed at the smallest size scale that makes sense contains so much energy in joules that it takes 108 zeros to write that number out.
108 zeros. How would you even conceptualize a big number like that?
Well, the best I could do for now is to write down a 1 followed by 108 zeros. And here it is. So I hope the camera can see this. Here's the one. Now these are the zeros. I'm pretty sure I counted right.
Wow.
There are 108 of them.
That's quite big, much bigger than when you just look at the exponential way of writing it,
You
right?
bet, yeah.
So that makes it somewhat easier to get a grasp of it, and you think that 1 joule is 1 watt for 1 second, and each cubic centimeter contains that much energy. So how many cubic centimeters would you need to cover the energy need on planet Earth for, say, a year?
Well, Bjorn, if you could use all the energy in 1 cubic centimeter, 0-point energy, it would provide all the energy the Earth would ever need for as long as it will remain a planet. That's pretty sure. And more. Now recall that I also mentioned in video 7 that the physics community says that none of that energy is useful to us because it's all random.
But David, as you have said before, and I know you still believe that some inventors actually have found ways to tap a relatively small fraction of this energy, which is really coming from outside our time and space as we understand it. Now, even if it's just a small fraction, it still is, because like you say, you like to say, and I love this saying of yours, a little bit of infinity goes a long way.
Which actually happens to be true. Pages 66 to 69 of Chapter 4, Volume 2, present background ideas why tapping into the 0-point energy field should be feasible. But for now, I want to stay focused on physical inventions, where there is information publicly available, which demonstrates that overunity is actually occurring. And I believe that 0-point energy is the best explanation where this extra energy comes from.
Okay, let's hear it. What invention are we going to talk about today?
We begin with presenting a comparison made by Dr. Peter Lindemann.
There he is again.
Indeed, he started examining free energy, infinite energy, overunity even before I started in 1977.
So what was Dr. Lindemann comparing?
He compared principles used by Nikola Tesla in the 1890s with those used by an inventor named E.V. Gray Sr. Now that's E.V., his initials of his first names. He always went by that, E.V. Gray Sr., and he worked in the 1970s and 1980s. Gray was making public claims in 1973 that he had invented an electric engine for automobiles which could run on batteries, produce 100 horsepower, and recharge the batteries all at the same time. Gray claimed he was using capacitor discharges and electromagnets to accomplish this.
Okay, hold on there, David. So he has a car which is running and recharging the batteries, its own batteries, while it's running, and it still has extra energy to keep running. So with that cycle, there is no known or ordinary energy going into the system as you would think of it. So that means there's overunity, and the overunity ratio must be infinite.
You are exactly correct.
Wow, no wonder that caught Peter Lindemann's attention. What did he explain about this technology of E.V. Gray Sr.?
Even though Lindemann studied Gray's 3 U.S. patents for this technology, he did not understand the operating principle until he, Lindemann, read a year 2000 book by Gerry Vassilatos called Secrets of Cold War Technology. And Lindemann also understood then that there were similarities between the technology of E.V. Gray in the 1970s and 80s and that of Nikola Tesla in 1890. Around 1890, Tesla discovered by charging capacitors in a DC circuit powered by a dynamo, then abruptly discharging the capacitors, that he had discovered a new electrical phenomenon, radiant electricity, which consisted of longitudinal waves, not alternating transverse waves. Tesla discovered that longitudinal waves could charge a capacitor at a distance with no connections to it, and this was replicated by the Borderland Science Research Foundation experimenters. Peter Lindemann, Tom Brown, and Eric Dollard, in one of the videos they produced in 1988, now freely available on the internet and featured in our previous video, number 23.
Okay, so we know that much of Tesla's research and work was blocked back in his days, but you're saying that it circled back, so to speak, and came back to E.V. Gray Sr. 85 years later?
That's how I see it. There are good forces at work that keep trying to make people's lives better. Darkness transmuted into light. There are more details in my NASA Volume 2, but here I state that abrupt DC impulses were the key Nikola Tesla used to obtain an overunity output in his high voltage electrical systems. Tesla stated that this overall process was magnifying energy. He assigned the name magnifying transmitter to the system that he designed, built, and tested, and that he claimed accomplished this goal.
But David, so according to classical closed system thermodynamics, magnifying energy in a system can't be done, right?
That is correct. But we did present a device that does magnify energy in our video number 20. And it should be noted that with limitless energy available from the 0-point field, we have an open thermodynamic system. And since this field exists everywhere, it would be possible to have a measured energy output greater than the measured energy input, provided that the DC electric impulse and longitudinal electric wave phenomena used by Tesla were converting merely an extremely small fraction of the unobservable 0-point energy into observable energy.
So a little bit of infinity goes a long way.
Always true and always will be.
Okay, so David, what is it about these technologies of Nikola Tesla and E.V. Gray Sr. that are enabled Dr. Lindemann to see that they were so similar?
Bjorn, this is best explained by page 74 from my volume 2, which we are going to show on the screen while I explain it. But first, a disclaimer and warning. As we used for video 17, that was the Grenaults, Dr. Peter Grenault and his son, Dr. Neil Grenault, and they were using very high voltages and sending electric discharges into water, and they got an overunity result. And then Tesla was always using very high voltages, and E.V. Gray was using high voltages. So if anyone is even thinking about exploring these kind of experiments, these kind of voltages are deadly. They could kill people immediately. So we say, do not attempt any high voltage experiments unless under the direct supervision of one who is trained in high voltage safety. This is extremely important. For example, at these voltages, an arc can jump through the air without even having to touch the equipment, and you may not get a second chance. So take all this seriously about high voltages.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Lindemann compared the somewhat different methods used by E.V. Gray in the 1970s and Nikola Tesla in the 1890s to obtain the same result: to magnify energy, or we would say now, to extract energy out of the zero-point energy field. Let us look at a side-by-side comparison of the technologies of Tesla and Gray from Figure 10 in Volume 2.
Okay, David, so please tell us what we are looking at here.
All right, so Tesla's is on the left side and Gray's is on the right side. So I won't go into the full nitty-gritty detail, but I'll give an overview of what's happening here. They both start with a DC current. Tesla starts at a high voltage, and Gray had to use some electronic methods to pulsate his voltage, step it up to a higher level, and then both inventors put their DC voltages into a capacitor. Then they both fired these capacitors, that is, discharged them through a spark gap. And that spark had to be controlled, so Tesla used a magnet to control the current in his spark gap, and Gray used an electronic means to control the current in his apparatus. So then after that spark gap and the control of it, the respective inventors had a way of collecting the energy and the extra energy derived from that spark. Now, a spark is sending out longitudinal electric waves, if it's a special spark that you obtain by controlling the direction of the current. And then longitudinal electric waves go through most substances, but when they hit metal, they will convert to electric current. They actually create electric current in metal. So in Tesla's invention, that metal was the inner coils of his pancake coil, which is shown in the left figure. And in Gray's invention, that metal was grids inside that tubular object where the spark is fired at the top of it. Dr. Lindemann called that the longitudinal waves turning into current as the electroradiant event, and they both had a fairly similar way of capturing that energy and then having an output greater than the input. And I believe the longitudinal wave was pulling a little bit of that energy out of the zero-point field, and that's where it really came from.
Wow, okay. All right, David, thank you for that walkthrough. And I guess that basically sums up today's topic. And I would say if someone wants to dive deeper into the nitty-gritty, as you say, of these technologies, they can always go into this report, and we'll have a link in the comments below, and study the details about it. Before we wrap this video though, David, I still have a question about E.V. Gray Sr. because you're comparing him to Nikola Tesla, and we know that Tesla's work had a lot of obstacles and blockages put against it. But what about E.V. Gray? I mean, if this technology worked this well, why are we all not driving around in vehicles using this technology?
Excellent question. The global financial and corporate powers that be definitely blocked his engine from getting to the public. Then there are mysterious stories about how Gray met his death in Nevada, not from natural causes. But if this concept, brought forth by Nikola Tesla and E.V. Gray Sr., can be resurrected, the world will be a better place.
Most definitely. And, let's hope someone, maybe even some of you watching this, would be inspired to take up the baton and carry this work forward.
Yes, that would be awesome. And if you do, please share it with the world.
Yes, and maybe let us know in the comments
Right.
below. So, David, thank you again for an inspiring and hopeful story, which leads me to my usual question at this point. What are you planning for our next video?
Well, Bjorn, we have many options. And there is still more interesting information to extract from Volume 2. However, we may also explore a suggestion from one of our viewers about the famous Bedini SSG circuit that we experimented with previously. We think it might have features in common with the inventions of Tesla and Gray, which we have talked about today. Stay tuned and you will be the first to know. Thank you for subscribing and upvotes, and we say, see you next video.